Welcome to a special session of Meditation on the Lawn hosted by the Contemplative Science Center and UVA Athletics. We're proud to have participants joining us today from across all areas of the UVA community, including students, faculty, staff, alumni, parents of students, and friends of the university. We're glad you're here. Again, my name is Steve Garland, and I'm the head wrestling coach here at the University of Virginia. I've just finished my 15th season as head wrestling coach here. I'm also an alumnus. I went to school here from 1996 to 2000, went up to Cornell University for 6 years in the Ivy League and came back here in 2006 and been here ever since. So you might be wondering why I'm a part of this program. My staff was asking me the same question this morning. And the truth of it is one, I always want to be a part of anything where I can learn and try to help my athletes with performance. And when I read about George, I thought I could learn something from him today, and I'm excited to do that. And then also in our program, we have 6 attack areas, life areas that we feel like our athletes have to grow in and develop when they get here all the way through their careers. And one of those is just simply called mind, the mind pillar. And that pillar is so important because it's the most important tool we have in the toolbox. And so I'm interested to hear what George is going to say on that topic as well in the Q&A session. So that's why I'm here. And in a second, I'm going to turn it over to our featured speaker, George Mumford, for a 15-minute meditation. But first, I wanted to share a little bit about George and his background. George Mumford is a globally recognized speaker, teacher, and coach. Since 1989, he's been honing his gentle but groundbreaking mindfulness techniques with people from locker rooms to boardrooms, Yale to jail. And that caught my attention too, George, because I've been involved in the past here in town with a local prison ministry. So thank you for your service there. Moving on, Michael Jordan credits George with transforming his on-court leadership, helping the Bulls to 6 NBA championships. Mumford has also worked with Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and countless other NBA players, Olympians, executives, and artists. Mumford's book, The Mindful Athlete, Secrets to Pure Performance, is both memoir and instruction guide. He believes everyone has a masterpiece within, which he can show you how to access. While at the University of Massachusetts, where he roomed with future Hall of Famer Julius Erving, injuries forced Mumford out of basketball and eventually into an addiction to pain medication and drugs. But with the help of meditation and mindfulness, he got clean and made it his mission to teach and work with others. Now I'll invite George on the screen now. And I look forward to rejoining everyone after the meditation to moderate a Q&A session. And as you think about your questions you may want to ask George, please enter those in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Thank you, George.
Okay, thank you, Steve, and thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm excited to be here. And I'd like to set the tone before we go into practice, because it's important to understand what's the context in which we are practicing. And so I like to talk about this idea of life can be an exciting adventure. The sun should arise within you each day in terms of the richness of your feelings and the sharpness of your perceptions. And so the idea is to understand that one of the greatest adventures in living is getting to know ourselves better. And that it's a voyage, it's a journey of self-discovery. So having said that, I'd like to start off with a quote from Soren Kierkegaard that says, the most common form of despair is not being who you are. So this process of inner exploration is a really good way to get to know who we are and to be ourselves and not to be someone else. And so I'd like to start off by inviting people to just sit and, if you're sitting, and be aware of just sitting and your sternum being somewhat upright. And if you're comfortable with it, likely closing your eyes and tuning into your body, and specifically tuning into the fact that we are breathing. And so we're very interested in learning how to breathe properly. So if you like, you can place one palm on your belly button and notice that as you breathe in, the belly expands. And as you breathe out, the belly falls or moves towards the spine or contracts. And the idea here is just to be aware of what we do all the time. And what is that? That's sitting and breathing and knowing it. So just sitting and feeling the body as a whole, while at the same time noticing that we're breathing in, the belly expands, and we're breathing out, and the belly contracts. And the idea is just to form the intention to be with the breath in the body, to really recognize, to both see and know that we are sitting and breathing. And so there's nothing special. We do it all the time, but now we're doing it with an intention of connecting with the breath, connecting with the body, connecting with this moment. So just focusing on the belly and the breath, breathing in and breathing out, feeling the body as a whole, feeling the pressure as my feet or your feet touch the ground, and noticing how we're sitting, making contact with the chair, noticing where our hands are. So it's just this, what I call applied thought or directed thought. We direct our attention, or we think about the body and the breath, and then our attention goes there. Then once it goes there, we just notice the sensations that are there. So there's the concept of the body and the breath, and then there's dropping below the concept and just feeling the body as we breathe in and as we breathe out. And I'm cognizant of the fact that some people may have allergies or cold or whatever, and you're not able to breathe just through your nose. Then by all means, feel free to breathe through your mouth. But the idea is just to allow the breath to come and go, to breathe in, feeling the body, breathing out, feeling the body and the breath, letting go of thoughts, images, sounds. And when we get distracted, you can just return to the breath, return to the body. Yet there's a simpler way of doing it. Just by thinking about the breath and the body, the attention goes there. So if I talk about, for instance, one of the things I want to offer also, if people are comfortable placing one palm on your sternum or chest. And so breathing in and breathing out, you can feel your palm, you can feel it making contact with your chest, feel the heat, the pressure, and you can also experience the lungs expanding and contracting. So if you have your palm on your belly, you can remove it and just place it on your sternum. Doesn't matter if it's right or left hand, left palm. I like the left palm, it just feels natural for me. And just noticing as you breathe in and breathe out that you can feel the palm and you can feel the breath. You can feel the lungs expanding and contracting. And we're just anchoring into the body, anchoring into the breath. And we're practicing the simplicity of just thinking about the palm, and then there's where the attention goes. Then once we get there, we sustain it by just allowing whatever's there to be there. And it's really what I call practicing the mood of wonder. And in this ability to just be with the palm and be with the breath, when we think about wonder, wonder is the unwilling willingness, the unwilled willingness to meet what is utterly strange and what is most familiar. It is the willingness to step back and let things speak to us, a passive receptivity to let the things of the world present themselves in their own terms. So in relation to sitting and breathing and knowing it, it's allowing the body to be just as it is, let it speak to us, let the breath speak to us. In this case, if you have the palm on your sternum, just allowing what's there to be there and to express itself in its own terms so that we're not interpreting, interrupting, or thinking about it. We're actually experiencing it. The only thoughts that we're engaged in on purpose, intentionally, is the directed thought of the body, the breath, the palm. Then once we get there, it's just a matter of dropping down and feeling the bare sensations of the body and the breath. And hopefully distinguishing the difference between breathing in and breathing out. And so there'll be times when I don't say anything, and that's when you can practice just remembering, okay, or asking yourself, where's your mind? Where's your attention? And then once you notice that you're engaged in thoughts or images or sounds, if you like, you can mentally note thinking. And then if you think about the palm, the sternum, the breath, the body, your attention goes there. And then it's a matter of just feeling sensations of breathing in and breathing out. So there's the choice of just focusing on the sternum and the palm. And even if you do that, you can still feel the body. You can still feel the sense of being in a seated posture. You can still feel sense of breathing. And the palm can be a nice anchor so we can actually make contact with the body and experiencing the breath. And of course, you always have the option of just focusing on what feels most prominent to you. And that's why I think that sometimes having a connection with the palm to the belly or the sternum or wherever, but especially the sternum or the belly, that we can actually feel it and experience it more vividly. And of course, when you get a sense for it, if you like to remove your palm, that's fine. But just connecting with ourselves is a great way to be who we are or be in touch with who we are, get a sense for who we are in this moment, in this posture, with this breath. Expressing the willingness to step back and let things speak to us, a passive receptivity to let the things of the world present themselves in their own terms. Sitting and breathing and knowing it, experiencing the richness of our feelings and the sharpness of our perceptions, which happens as a byproduct without doing, just being, just allowing, just letting things be as they are. Just noticing where your attention is, where your mind is. Is it with the body and the breath, or is it involved in images, thoughts, sounds? Just noticing and thinking, applying, directing your attention to the body, the breath, the palm, sitting and breathing and knowing it, feeling it, experiencing it. Not thinking about the experience, but experiencing the experience. Bare sensations, heat, pressure, connection, expanding, contracting. sitting and breathing and knowing it, feeling it. As we come to the end of this exercise, I'd like to take the time to thank everyone for participating, indulging all of us in this process of being with ourselves in this quiet, compassionate way. And that is something that we can reflect on and feel good about, that the best way to avoid despair and being who you are is learning how to be with yourself, for us to be with ourselves. And so when you're ready, just breathing in, feeling the entire body. And if you have your palm on your sternum, when you breathe out, just letting go of the palm, letting go of the body, letting go of the breath, and just opening your eyes. I want to thank you for participating in that process, and I'd like to welcome Steve back.
Well, thank you, George. We've got a couple questions that have come in, but I'm just so selfish. And I hope everyone this isn't just me, they're thinking this. I'm hoping everybody wants to know, how you got connected with Phil Jackson and the other elite athletes that you've worked with. And I know we have a short time, so
Yes,
we can't get into all of it, but maybe just a quick snapshot.
Yeah, quick snap. So I was working at the UMass Medical Center in the Department of Preventive and Behavioral Medicine in the stress reduction and relaxation program. Now it's called Center for Mindfulness, and it's at Brown. But I was working there, in the prisons, and set up an inner city clinic. And John Kabat-Zinn and Phil crossed paths at Omega, and Phil asked John to recommend somebody to help the team, because it was 1993. The Bulls had just won 3 championships in a row, 3-peat, and Phil wanted to help the guys deal with the stress of success. So he reached out to me, and then once he found out that I roomed with Dr. J, and I had friends that played in the NBA, that I knew culture and I had similar backgrounds, I just went there, and the rest is history. That's how I got into it.
Gotcha. Well, another question. This is a great question that came in from a student athlete. So I wanted to share this one. It says, do you have any tips specifically for student athletes on how to integrate mindfulness into our busy lives, especially when we're in season? And this person goes on to say, I feel like I barely have time to study, rest, travel, and compete. It's hard to even think about making space for something else.
Yes. Well, I would look at it as making space for yourself, and understand that if you make time, you'll have time. And so you have to incorporate the process into your life. So there's a philosopher, his name is Dr. Dre. And he said, I got my mind on money, money on my mind. That's meditation. That's a form of contemplation. So even during the day, if you think about, reflect on, okay, what's on my mind? I have my mind on what? That's what's on my mind. So if I have my mind on success, mind on being present, I got being present on my mind. And then you have to have some time, even if it's 2 minutes, what we just practiced. When you're playing, you can be in your body and just remember to breathe and just feel your body, whatever posture it's in. And then start thinking, be deliberate, ask a question like, what am I doing? What's my intention? How's it working? Because as an athlete, a student athlete, you have to reflect on, are you moving towards your goal, or you weren't moving away from it? What are you doing? Is this in alignment? So you start asking questions and being present and being clear about, like I set it up, like the richness, of your feelings and the sharpness of your perceptions. You have to start thinking, am I seeing clearly? You got to start asking yourself questions. Why am I seeing things a certain way? So contemplation means to look at repeatedly, or look at closely, So even if you find 2 minutes to sit and breathe, you'll have more sharpness in your perceptions, and you have richness in your feelings. That's going to enhance and inspire and give you access to energy and clarity. So it's like, to me, you can practice I practice from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. Even if it's just a rough estimation of how's my body feeling, am I tired? Is there energy? There's not energy. Am I in survival mode or am I in growth mode? Am I in fear or am I in love? It's really simple stuff. You can do that all day long, and incorporating it into what you're doing. So when you do your skills, when you practice, when you do your homework, you got to put your mind in what we call a resourceful state of mind. It has to be positive, or you won't learn, and you won't have the sharpness of your perceptions.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot better than when my guys talk to me about time and I say, hey, people find time for what they find time for. I like your answer better, George. Thank you. Next one. What are some of the challenges you've encountered when you first started practicing?
Mine has a mind of its own. In other words, when I sat down and see how my mind was all over the place, there's a part of me that says, I didn't sign up for this. This is uncomfortable. Am I doing it? It was really hard for me to sit still because I was an athlete and I like to be physical. So it was challenging for me to sit, but with that discipline that I learned in athletics, to just sit through it and get comfortable being uncomfortable, then move into it. But also I would do some movement first, especially if I would walk, run, whatever. And then when I sat down, your breath is more there, and then you can but then I started to use it when I used to run, and I used to get stitches I used to run cross country. And I learned that I didn't have to stop and walk. If I was mindful, I could just notice how to be with it in a way where I created space for it, and I could continue to run, and it didn't get to be a problem. So the challenge is finding time. And the challenge also is being okay with noticing that you're doing it even when you notice you're unmindful most of the time. When you notice you spend most of your time focused on something else, you're still doing what's being asked. Because once you notice you're not mindful, you're being mindful. So the challenge is getting the right information, the right idea, and understanding that we're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be able to do it perfectly. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do the best you can and start over, begin again. It's really, so the challenge is, that's been my biggest challenge, is that find the time. And if you have the same time every day, if you find 2 minutes, 2 minutes might become 10 minutes or 5 minutes or each time. So the challenge it's a challenge for all of us, how to incorporate it in our daily life. So it's not, I'm doing meditation, then I'm doing life. No, it's all of a piece.
Thank you for that. I thought this one was good in the chat. Said it can be hard to convince people of the power and benefits of mindfulness if they haven't engaged before. What is the best technique you've used to get people on board, and in parentheses, athletes, CEOs, etc.?
Ask them what they want. But what do you want? What are you interested in? Then who do you need to be? And then, so to me, I feel like if you try to convince somebody to do something, if it was me, I'm going to be resistant because you're telling me you know better than me. So it's really more about share your experience, how it's helped you. So for me, it helped me with my chronic pain. It helped me with my recovery. It helps me with being present. And so we talk about the benefits, but ask people what they want, or reflect on the times when they did really well. And one of the things we know for sure is the only time we live is in the moment, in the present. So any practice you can have that's going to help you be more present, help you be more focused, is going to be helpful. And so this process can help you, but maybe you have to be like me. You have to have your butt on fire before you realize that you have to figure, what you're doing is not working. So to me, it's not just a nice to, it has to be a want to. It's not for those who need it, it's for those who want it.
Thank you. I've got another one. This is coming from me, actually, George. I wrote this down. I was really blessed. I got to be on staff of 2 world teams, a junior world team and a U23 world team in Brazil and Romania. And I was sort of fascinated in studying some of the elite guys, not just from our country, but other countries. And the big thing I noticed was importance of routine, attention to details. In other words, these elite athletes all kind of shared certain things. Have you seen that? If you had all the people you've worked with, is there a common denominator or something a core thing that you've seen in all these guys that they all share, guys and gals?
Yes. Commitment to excellence, or I would say, I want to, a discipline, but also joy and love for it, compassion for it, a willingness. And it's interesting because when I become interested in something, it becomes interesting. And so when you start asking the questions like, how do I do this? The how-to questions, how is, studying excellence and saying, okay, these are what the elite do. So what are some of the common denominators? The main one is the ability to be in the moment, the ability to know themselves and express themselves.
Wow, that's great. Well, I think we have time for one more. This one is goes in line. It's in the chat, and I wanted to ask this, George, because it goes in line also with one of the pillars of our program, relationship. It says, "Thanks so much for your wisdom. How has your how has your practice benefited your relationships?"
Yes. So I have another quote here. I want to read this. This is important. You can't. This is from this is from Fred Rogers. You can't really love someone unless you really love yourself first. So relationships, the most important relationship is the relationship you have with yourself. So if you make your mind your best friend, or you know how to be with yourself, it'll be easier to be with others.
Well, I'm looking through the chat right now to come up with one more for you. How can mindfulness help with our expectations and attachments we hold with these expectations?
Great. Well, as I'm going to quote a famous Hall of Famer, Yogi Berra. He said, you can see a lot just by observing.
Heard. Yeah.
You watch, you see, because the thing is, as a society, we're so focused on pathology. We're always focused on what's wrong. We don't focus on what's right, or focusing on good, because to know yourself, you got to know your strengths, your weaknesses. And so when you have failures, or when you don't, execute the way you want to, all it's giving us is feedback to what you need to learn and practice. It's a feedback loop. So it helps you by know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. You have to see things as they are. And sometimes we got to realize that our backhand is not very good if we're tennis player, and we got to work on that.
I love it. Now you're quoting scripture. That's my language, George. Now we're cooking.
Yes, that's the thing. See, the thing is, at the bottom line is, if you master the fundamentals, you're going to be fine. And the fundamentals, you have to master them to the point where they become automatic. There's no space between stimulus and response. You just automatically understand, you see, and you get right back to the fundamentals. And then you can freelance off of that. But if you're not fundamentally sound, then when you make a mistake, it's going to be a challenge to fix it. But if you know what the fundamentals are, it's going to be obvious what the mistakes are. And then you learn from them, and then you adapt.
Okay, I've got one more for you. Thank you, George. This is what I've seen in 21 years of doing this, is a lot more, and I think it's good. We're a lot more dialogue regarding anxiety. Anxiety is a thing that I've seen, and I've seen it, manifest itself physically, mentally. I've seen it emotionally. I've just seen it take its toll on the young men I work with, and I feel like it's getting more prevalent. I've seen more situations with it. Is there any way you can relate your practicing to helping with that specifically?
Yes. So I'm holding up a quarter here. One side is heads, the other side is tails. One side is potential, freedom, the other side is anxiety. Comes with it, it's, the military folks use the word VUCA, V-U-C-A. They say from moment to moment, things are volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We have to embrace anxiety as our teachers telling us that we need to understand what's going on. It's not about being afraid or being anxious. It's like, okay, so that means we're out of our comfort zone. and we can get comfortable with that. And the anxiety can be a teacher. The meaning of anxiety is we're closer to freedom than we think. We're closer to achievement than we think. But sometimes we have anxiety because we're challenged beyond our skill level. But that's why we have to continue to continuous improvement, knowledge, skills, and experience. So you have anxiety, that means that you need more skills, more knowledge, more information to do it. So instead of looking at it like, oh, it shouldn't be there, or I'm in the wrong thing, it's telling you that you need to step it up. You need to figure out physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You have to keep building. So you want to build wellness. So when the anxiety comes, it becomes an opportunity for you to level up.
I wish, George, that you could, this is off script, but you could tell that to every parent of every young man that I recruit.
Amen. Amen.
Nobody wants to admit that, well, maybe he just needs to add to his game. Maybe that's what it is.
No, the same guy, Soren Kierkegaard, 1846, he said what he calls it is the alarming possibility of being able. Anxiety is the alarming possibility of being able.
Wow. Well, we could probably go on a lot longer, George, but we've been told we got to wrap it up. So I just
I love your questions, Coach. Coach, this is my wheelhouse, man. I'm just getting warmed up when you start asking me them real questions about this stuff. That's
when I start getting serious, when I start sweating through my shirt, and I think we got a little bead going. So we'll have to connect hopefully one day.
Yes. Okay.
Team. But thank you guys so much for being with us, and stay tuned next week for Monday's weekly meditation on the lawn at 7:50 Eastern time. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you all. Thanks for having me.